Okay, before we jump in, just a quick but really important heads up. This is all for educational purposes. It is not financial advice. We're here to break down how this system works, but you've always got to do your own research. All right, let's get into it.
For, wow, over 150 days now, we've talked about the buy, burn, build system, the BBB, mostly as a form of defense, a shield, right? Something built to absorb pressure. But today, we're going to completely reframe that whole conversation. We're going to explore how that shield has morphed into something way, way more powerful, the actual dominant force in its own market.
So here's the big idea, the main shift in thinking. The BBB was born as a shield. Its whole purpose was to soak up the massive sell pressure from all those daily token releases. But what happens when that sell pressure basically vanishes? Well, the shield doesn't just turn off. It becomes an engine, and it starts actively driving the market forward. And here's our game plan. We'll walk through this whole transformation, starting with the massive power shift that made it all possible. Then, we'll pop the hood on that buying engine, figure out where its never-ending fuel comes from, trace its evolution, and finally, see what happens when this powerful defense meets, well, almost zero offense. It all starts right here, with a really dramatic and, honestly, a fundamental change in how the market works. The sell-side pressure, the offense the BBB was built to fight, it's pretty much gone. Now, to really get what's happening now, you gotta look back at where we came from. In the early days, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of new tokens hitting the market every single day. The BB's job was huge. It had to be a massive shield just to stay afloat.
Okay, now let's fast forward to today. The daily token release has just collapsed to 92. No, that's not a typo. We went from hundreds of thousands down to just 2 digits. The enemy this shield was designed to fight has basically vanished.
And this chart just captures the new reality perfectly. On one side, you've got about $29 of sell pressure from those daily releases. And on the other side, you've got the BBB, deploying around $1,200 of buy power every day. The imbalance is just staggering. The defense now completely overpowers the offense. So let's take a look under the hood of this engine, shall we? How much money has it actually put to work? And, what has all that capital really done? The total biome power that's been deployed from the BBB system so far is over $155,000. Now, that number is a mix of the stablecoin USDC that it gets from its bonds, plus the value of the protocol's own eShare token that it's also used. This isn't just theory, it's real, executed buying that has been actively shaping this market.
And all that buying power gets sent out through 4 different pools. You've got 2 buy and burn pools. They buy tokens and just poof, remove them forever. And then you have 2 buy and build pools, which buy tokens and add them back as liquidity to make trading smoother. But look, the most important column here is funding, because that's the secret to its sustainability.
And this is maybe the most critical thing to get. The pools funded by eShare, they're finite. They're powered by internal stuff, and they will eventually run out. But the USDC pools, those are perpetual. They are fueled by an external source of yield that just keeps on coming. So where does that perpetual fuel actually come from? Well, that external power source is the absolute heart of this engine's sustainability. We're talking about the bond portfolio, which acts like a perpetual motion machine, just constantly generating fuel for the BBB. Right now, the protocol holds over 10,000 bonds. And look, that's not just some random number. That is a massive piece of yield-generating infrastructure that was built up piece by piece over months. It is the reason this engine can run forever. Now, what's really cool is how resilient this system is. Even in a nasty bear market, these bonds are cranking out nearly $500 a day for the BBB. In an average market, that jumps to over 1,000. This means the shield is always up and the engine is always running, no matter what the rest of the crypto world is doing. So if you take away one thing from this section, let it be this. The engine fuels itself from the outside. It runs on trading fees from millions of swaps all across DeFi. It doesn't need new users to buy in. Its fuel isn't tied to the token's price. It just runs. Okay, so we get the how. Now let's talk about the when. How did the BBB actually go from being a simple shield to the beast it is today? Well, it happened in 4 very clear phases.
In phase 1, it was just a shield, basically running to catch up to all those daily releases. In phase 2, it evolved into armor, built to take these huge heavy blows from scheduled token unlocks. Then came phase 3, the big turning point, when it became a net buyer. Its buy power was finally bigger than the sell pressure. And that brings us to where we are now, phase 4,
where it's simply the dominant force.
And this is where the story gets really mind-bending. What in the world happens when this incredibly powerful, constantly fueled defensive engine goes up against an offense of, well, basically zero?
I mean, just look at this chart. It's almost funny, right? The daily buy pressure from the BBB makes up a staggering 97.6% of this entire dynamic. The sell pressure from new tokens? It's that tiny little 2.4% sliver over there.
Let's put a number on that. The BBB's buying power is currently providing a 41 times coverage ratio for daily releases. For every $1 of sell pressure, there are $41 of automated buy pressure just waiting for it.
But it gets even crazier. In just a few days, on day 160, the daily token releases are going to drop to just pennies worth of value. At that point, the coverage ratio is projected to just explode to over 13,000 to 1. Just let that sink in for a second.
And then you get to the mathematical climax. On the days when token releases are literally zero, but the BBB is still deploying hundreds of dollars a day, what's the coverage ratio? Well, it's infinite. You can't divide a number by zero. It's just total, absolute market dominance.
So when this becomes the new normal, three huge things change at a structural level. First, price floors stop being a theory and become operational. You have real automated buys hitting the market every day. Second, the token burns become way more powerful. Since the supply isn't growing anymore, each burn carves out a bigger percentage of the total, compounding its effect. And third, the flywheel just starts to spin on its own. The whole system becomes self-reinforcing.
So let's just recap. We have $83,000 deployed, 10,000 bonds fueling it, $58,000 in buy and burn, 25,000 in buy and build, another 7,000 e-share of extra power, and it's all running 24 hours a day.
And what's it fighting against? 92 tokens today, 0 tokens on day 158, 3 tokens on day 160. Look, it started as a shield, something to absorb the blows, to protect everyone during the storm. But the storm is over. The releases are going to 0, and the shield didn't stop. It kept deploying, kept buying, kept burning. The defense became the market. From shield to sword, from defense to dominance. That is the BBB at maturity.
Thanks for tuning in to this explainer. And just one last time, please remember, crypto investments are incredibly risky and you could lose all your funds. This was purely for education, and you should always do your own deep research before making any kind of financial move.